Hey, it's JC. Welcome to Urban Knife Guy, where we explore the urban lifestyle and jungle survival. Today we're going to have a look at the Bushmate Bushcraft knife, designed by Dutch Bushcraft Knives and made by BPS out of Ukraine. I'm going to talk about the knife, but I'm also going to talk about the sheath, which many others have pointed out issues with in the first batch. First, if you watch this channel regularly but have not subscribed, please do so to help the channel out. And if you'd like to support the channel even more, do check out my shop links in the description or pinned comment. Thanks a lot. As mentioned, this knife is designed by Dutch Bushcraft Knives, also known as DBK. DBK is a pair of good friends who run a popular YouTube channel that essentially features and tests knives. BPS Knives is a knife manufacturer that has made a name for themselves producing high quality but affordable camping and bushcraft knives. I would like to thank them for sending me this knife for review. This Bushmate knife is really nice. It's nimble, it's small, it's a bushcraft style knife, and it's really made me appreciate the effectiveness of a smaller fixed blade. Generally, I like slightly larger blades, and I almost look down on smaller blades. You know, I like smaller blades maybe if they were a folding knife, but not so much for a fixed blade, especially for the outdoors. But after using this and handling this, it is actually very capable, and I actually do prefer that it is smaller. I'll share more thoughts in just a bit. First, some specs. The blade length is 4 inches long, the handle length is 4.6 inches long, and the overall length is 8.7 inches long. The weight without the sheath is 4.9 ounces or 140 grams. The blade width is 1 inch. The blade thickness is 2.8 millimeters, so it's nice and thin, and a lot of people do like that for a small bushcraft knife. The blade steel is 1055 carbon steel, more on that later, and it features a saber grind with a secondary bevel. And I know that DBK really likes that secondary bevel, even if it's a grind like a Scandi grind. And personally, I also think that saber grinds to me are my favorite grinds for outdoor knives. The handle is solid walnut and is finished with Danish oil. Not sure why it must be Danish, but that's what they say. It is actually really nicely finished. All over, no hot spots, no rough edges, and you can see the pins, so that's how it's secured. There is a lanyard hole with a brass tube insert. So overall ergonomics are great. You know, I thought for a smaller knife it would feel too small, but it actually feels good. Now, small to medium-sized hands, but I think generally most people would find this actually really comfortable. Oh, let's have a look at some comparisons first. Let's compare it with the very popular Condor Bushlaw, which is kind of patterned after the Woodlaw knife designed by Alan Wood and Ray Mears. And you can see that the Bushlaw is slightly longer. And I actually like the size and shape of this knife, but when I felt this, I actually now like this more, surprisingly. Here's the Joker Ember. Also larger, and it's got a much thicker handle, and I personally prefer this smaller handle. If you've got really huge hands, then I think you'd prefer this nice thick handle, and the Ember is even thicker than that Bushlaw. Another knife from Condor is the Pterosaur. This has a plastic molded over handle, so it's got a hidden tang, but you can see it protrudes out like that. It's a bit like the Moore knife Garbuk, but the size is quite similar. The blade for the DBK is still a bit shorter, and I guess if you want a really nice size comparison, I guess the Moore knife Companion, although the shape is quite different, this blade is much thinner, but it's got that same size. So if you do like the smaller blades for the Moore Companion, which gives you a nice purchase and a lot of flexibility and control over your knives, you might actually like the smaller knife. And that's what I began to appreciate about this knife. You know, I took it out to the jungle to test, and it did very well with fine cutting tasks and even battening. I'm here in the jungle, and as you can see from the testing, this is a small and capable knife. It could batten, and I expected that too. Coming from DBK, that should be, I guess, minimum requirements. And I believe this knife will be able to go through any piece of wood, I would say 3 inches or so. So really capable in that sense. Now obviously it is not large enough to chop, or not heavy enough to chop it, and it's not designed to do that, but you could beaver chew it as I showed. You can actually cut into it, kind of cross batten but at angles, and if you do this around a tree, then you could go all the way around and then eventually fell a small tree if you really needed to. Of course, you know, you should bring the right tools for the job, so bring a saw, an axe, or a hatchet if you really wanted to fell a small tree, but if you really needed to, you could do that. And of course, for fine work, feather sticking, not a problem as well. Got really nice curls, and I was pretty impressed. As mentioned, I do like a saber grind with a secondary bevel, and this worked very well as well. The spine of the blade is sharpened, and it comes with the ferro rod, so scrape off the outer coating and you should be able to get pretty good sparks. When you have a knife this size, I think it's perfect when it's part of a 3-knife system, which I've talked before in a previous video. You can check that out in the card above or the description below. And if I were to pair a knife like this with something else, I'll go with a bigger tool like a saw. This is the Pocket Boy from Silky, really capable to cut down limbs and branches up to all the way up to 3.5 to 4 inches in diameter. And then you can bring a small folding knife or a multi-tool like this, the Leatherman rebar, and you got a great setup for a 3-knife system. And even though this knife is not that big, it works perfectly well with this kind of a setup. So if you're new to bushcraft or you do not like larger knives, I think this is a great affordable 4-inch blade, and I highly recommend it. So the knife is great, but now we have to talk about the sheath. If you watch videos of people who have reviewed this knife when it first came out, they all complained about the sheath. Even the DBK boys know about it. So everyone had generally great things to say about the knife, but when it came to the sheath, which is this one over here, there were issues. Let me tell you what the issues were with the original sheath. The main thing was that it was too big for the knife, and even after you belt it or buckle it up with the retention strap, it would just drop out. So that was the issue with the knife, and I believe that was all with the first batch of knives. Well, my knife surely came from a later batch, because I can tell you, I'm happy to say, the sheath does not have that problem of being loose. It is really nice and snug. However, the retention strap is way too short. The position of that button is just wrong. You can see it's off by almost ½ an inch. And I tried to widen this hole just a bit, but even so, there's no way I can reach over to put that in. Yeah, even using 2 hands and just pulling, I can't get it. And just so that you can get a look, you can see how far off that is. Right, the hole is here, this is the pin, you can't get it. And if this was on your belt, there's no way you could do it with 1 hand. So that's pretty disappointing, because they fixed the sheath in terms of the size, they made it smaller, but they didn't check the strap, and now I can't close it up. And I can't really fix this another way. I can't punch another hole because it would probably split or be very close to the edge. You know what I wish they would do? I wish they wouldn't have done this style of retention strap. They could have done something like this, where there is a press stud that folds over onto the sheath itself, and you just press that down, and when it's on your belt, you could just flip that open, take out the sheath, take out the knife, put it back, and just close that up easily. So I'm not sure what the issue is, why they have so much problems with this particular sheath design, and they just can't get that right, because it is a very nice sheath, and everyone says that, right? The quality of the BPS sheaths in general very good, really thick, just like Condor, Joker, any of these good brands. They use thick leather, well constructed. This is dangler style. Everything works well, even comes with a ferro rod and ferro rod holder. In this case, this is one set, so the walnut actually matches. So it looks great, but you can't close it up. So it really renders the sheath ineffective, and it's not something you can actually use. Well, I anticipated there might be an issue with the sheath, although I did not expect the strap to be too short. So I requested that they send me one of their regular sheaths. And this is it. This is model SH07. It's available in black and brown. I chose black, and it also comes with a ferro rod. So this is a standalone item. I requested it for them, well, one, in anticipation with problems with this sheath, but I also wanted to use it for other knives because I know that the sheath quality is are great. And you can see this, look, it's all nice and thick, well molded, welting all around, great stitching. You have that ferro rod and the holder. And if I now take this out, this fits in nicely like that. And you can carry it dangler style. No way it's gonna come out, and you still can grab that because it's got that kind of bird beak, and pull it out, use it, and you can easily put it in. The great thing about this sheath, it fits, you know, most knives with overall length between 7 to 9 inches. It's suitable with many BPS knives such as the Adventurer and of course this Bushmate, but it also fits other popular bushcraft knives like the Mora knife Garber. So if you have a Garber but you don't like that sheath, you're on a leather sheath, get this sheath that fits. Now, I thought of using it for the Condor Terrasaur because the Terrasaur comes with a plastic sheath, but the fit is really tight. It's really hard to disengage, and when it's on the belt, it's almost impossible to get out. But with this fits nicely and won't come out, no rattle, it's secure, and then you get a nice leather sheath for this particular knife. But I get to use it for this as well. So that is quite perfect, I think. However, not so perfect if you're going to just buy the Bushmate set. So in conclusion, I do recommend the Bushmate knife. Now, as mentioned, I think it's a great knife. If you appreciate a smaller knife, I say get it. But contact BPS first and ask them to check the sheath that they're going to provide and make sure that the retention strap actually can close properly and easily, right? You do not want to use too much force, two hands to try squeeze it in. You just want to make it easy. Or maybe they can even change this if they see this video, or if they get enough complaints, they'll find a way to fix this. Or maybe you can check if they're willing to switch in their regular sheath for this knife. Now bear in mind, this is actually much longer than is required for the Bushmate, as you can see, but you know, not a problem, and as I showed, you can use it for many knives. So that's what I would recommend. Get the knife, but before you put in the order, contact BPS and tell them, you know, you're worried about that sheath, that retention strap. Can they ensure and fix it before they send it out? And I think you'll be very happy with the purchase, which is basically $50 or sub $50 depending where you order it from. So that's it. Do you have the new batch of Bushmate knives designed by DBK and made by BPS? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, whether you had problems with the sheath, the same problems that I did, or do you have the alternate regular sheath and do you use that? I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you like the content in general, please subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.